What is up, guys? Media Master Menard here today, bringing you guys another video. And by the title of the video, I'm sure you guys can tell we're reviewing Aquaman today, and I'm bringing you guys my thoughts on the movie. Like I mentioned in the Spider-Man movie, I saw this movie right after I saw Spider-Man, so it was kind of a double-header experience at the movie theater, but I try to keep the comparisons of the two films to a minimum, so let's get into the review. So the movie starts off with Aquaman, aka Arthur, reminiscing on how his parents met each other, and his dad was an attendant of a lighthouse and his mom was the Queen of Atlantis. So that's where he gets his kind of aqua powers, so to speak. And we get to see a quick fight scene right at the beginning of the Queen fighting off Atlantis soldiers, and let me tell you, it was a really cool one-cut action scene. It didn't last too long, but I thought it was really well shot, as well as the action with the rest of the film. Then the movie shifts to Aquaman, who is at a submarine, who is absolutely kicking ass. And you get to really see the demonstration of how strong he really is. He's taking on a group of pirates who have commandeered this submarine, and it is just another really awesome scene. This movie started off fantastic. Arthur does leave one man alive on the ship, and it happens to be the Black Manta, who is a villain in the Aquaman universe, and so that really becomes important later on, and you get to see why, but I won't go into that too much. And next, the movie heads off to a place where it's underwater, and so we assume it's Atlantis, and there's kind of a congregation of different leaders from the different tribes or kingdoms of Atlantis, and we get to see they're congregating, deciding if they should attack mankind on the surface, and some of them believe they should and others don't. And while they're conversing, a submarine actually attacks the conclave, let's call it. And so then they all decide, hey, we're gonna retaliate on the surface, and they send a big tidal wave onto the surface, and it deals a ton of damage. And this is worldwide retaliation, not just one shore. So all the garbage that the humans have been dumping into the ocean is being sent right back at them. And then we get to see a Princess Mira come to the shore and try to convince Arthur to take his rightful place on the throne as the true king. And I'll stop right there with my premise or synopsis of this film, because anymore, and that's really spoiler territory. But the story does revolve around Aquaman going out and determining if he truly wants to be a leader of Atlantis, and is it really his birthright. And you get to see him going back and forth with his brother King Orm if he really should be the king, and they kind of butt heads with each other. And he's also searching for this trident, which will give him the power to take on King Orm. And so that's kind of how this movie goes and the path it takes. And I think the movie is actually really good, and I think DC is starting to maybe find their rhythm a little bit with these solo movies. I don't know if they know how to do the team-ups yet, but the solo movies, I think they're sort of starting to get down to a science, and a lot of that comes from them maybe copying, I don't know if that's the right word, but borrowing the same type of formula from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And that isn't completely a bad thing, but it is a little formulaic at times. But I do think the plot was engaging beginning to end. It was super exciting journey, even if the end destination was a little bit predictable. One of the big things I think they borrowed from the Marvel Cinematic Universe is kind of having a lot of comedy thrown in here and there. In the past, DC has really tried to ground their movies in reality and make them gritty and tough, and I think that worked for a movie like Wonder Woman, where it was based in World War I, but for this movie, I think it was really good that they decided not to do that, and they kind of knew that Aquaman's setting was a little goofy and a little over the top, and they embraced it, and they kind of just took it and went with it, and I think it worked out to the max for them. And I think this is really good for DC in the future, because I think they've kind of gotten over that hump maybe of trying to be so serious, and they're learning that people want to have a good time at these movies. With that being said, however, they still haven't perfected their craft like Marvel has. You could tell there was times where they were trying to make jokes or do something funny, and it just didn't land like it does in Marvel movies. And I know that it takes a while for these types of things to develop, so I'm sure in time, if they keep up what they're doing, things will be okay. One thing that was unclear to me, however, is if this happens before or after the Justice League movie and the Batman vs Superman events. It's never really truly explained in this movie unless I missed it by chance, which is very possible. But it also begs the question, why didn't this origin story happen before they made Justice League? I mean, it really made no sense to have Justice League without previously having made these characters developed and having you learn to know and love them, and they didn't do that at all. They kind of try to go for the cash out without the build up, and they try to go for the payoff a little too soon, I thought, in that one, because if they would have had this before Justice League, that would have helped a lot. Same thing with the Cyborg movie. I really just don't know why they didn't do that. That's one of the few decisions, one of the many decisions I should say, by DC that really hasn't made much sense to me. One minor complaint that I have is that the romance subplot was a little weak and underdeveloped, especially towards the end of the film. It seemed that they kind of just went to the payoff and we missed a couple things. Maybe there was a couple deleted scenes, something like that. But I do think Jason Momoa and the stunning Amber Heard did a great job with what they were giving and making it really believable. And just in general, even outside of the romantic roles on this movie, I think they did a really good job of making the characters believable and likable, and they were a really good duo and they had really good chemistry on screen. The pacing overall was a little fast, similar to the romance subplot, but one thing that I thought was really truly incredible was the CGI work in this film. Everything looks fantastic, and kind of the lore they built just through the CGI alone of how it looks, and everything is so beautiful, and you really get immersed in this world. And it's really impressive how much CGI is in this film. Usually when there's a lot of CGI, I am upset and it's kind of bad and looks ugly, and I'm looking for more practical effects, but in this movie it looks really good and they did a great job, so I think a lot of people will be happy with that. Well, I've been kind of rambling about this movie for a while now, so I'm going to leave it at that. Overall, I thought it was a pretty decent film, and it might not be for everyone. If you're a huge Marvel fanboy and have hated DC, maybe it's not for you, but if you've been holding out hoping DC is going to be improving their filmmaking, I think this movie is for you. I think they are headed in the right direction, and we'll see what they do with their upcoming movies. I know they have a plan out for the near future, and I think this is very good news for people who are waiting for good news from DC. But I want to know what you guys thought about Aquaman. Did you like it, or were you on the fence about it and kind of not really enthralled by the movie as a whole? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be bringing you guys more movies, TV, video game, and anime content. I'm going to leave a link to my Twitter in the description below so you can find out when I post a new video. And until then, this is Master Menard, signing off.
I look at the top, I'm going crazy, who wearing the crown? Scootly bop, doodly bolly, doodly down.